All right, back with you. This is San Diego Sports Leader. It is the Mighty 1090. And as we talked about off the top of the show, New Mexico a winner last night on ESPN. Really not much of a contest against UNLV. I think that speaks more of New Mexico than it might of UNLV. But up next, San Diego State. It's the showdown that we've been speaking about for several weeks. New Mexico at home at the Pit in Albuquerque, hosting San Diego State. You can listen to it this weekend on the Mighty 1090. Joining us, as he does on a weekly basis, is the AHC. The HCIW, he is Brian Dutcher, back on the Mighty 1090. Coach, good to talk to you.
Great to be back, Darren, after a couple of wins.
Well, absolutely. I'm just going to guess here that it's easy to say now in hindsight. Was there ever really any concern coming off that loss against Wyoming?
Yeah, there's always concern. You know, you watch games like last night where Syracuse got beat by the last-place team in the conference, Boston College, and it just shows you that, as they say, on any given night, things can happen. So, obviously, we're concerned with every opponent we play, and I thought our kids really responded well. They played super hard, and it's always nice to be back in Viejas to try to get back on the winning track.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up because it's something I said a little bit earlier in the show. And, you know, I can't prove this, and I know that Boston College was dealing with something here very, very personal and emotional for that program. But, you know, it's hard not to look at Syracuse and say, well, you know, they have Duke coming up this weekend, and you are dealing with 19 and 20-year-old kids. I suppose, I mean, it's at least a plausible theory that they were looking ahead. I mean, how else can you explain losing to a 7 and 19 team? So how much do you try to avoid that? Because Tuesday night was a great example for me of you have New Mexico coming up here on Saturday, but you still have to play Utah State. And I thought your team played great, and they were focused, and it was obvious.
Yeah, well, Utah State had a lot to do with that, having taken us to overtime at their place, and we were very fortunate to win. They had our team's full attention. And then Syracuse, I mean, basketball games are hard. I mean, they had, I think, 3 games in a row that went to the final possession. And so even though they were undefeated, they had been constantly tested. And so I think when you're ranked where they are and where we are, you're going to take the best shot from everybody you play. And to our credit and to Syracuse credit, we've come up on top most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I was just watching that last night, just thinking to myself, you know, I mean, a little peek ahead, perhaps, just maybe a little bit of loss of focus. And you know what? To your point, anybody can lose on any given night. Hey, let's go back to Tuesday night. Matt Shrigley, huh? I mean, where'd that performance come from?
It makes coaching a lot easier when your kids make 3-point shots. So, I mean, Matt is a guy, when he makes the first one, he might get 3 or 4, which he did. Reminded me of some earlier season games against Creighton and some people like that, where Air Force on the road where he hits one, and then I think as a coaching staff, we're smart enough to go right back to him. And he was hot, and we rode him for a while, and he really enabled us to get out ahead early in that game.
Is there any indication, though? I mean, you know, in baseball, a sport I'm pretty familiar with. You always ask guys, you know, when a pitcher goes out and has a great performance, you go, well, was there anything that happened while he was warming up that gave you an idea that this was going to be the night? Is there anything in warm-ups? I mean, was there any indication that this kind of performance was on its way for Shrigley?
You know, I don't really watch the warm-ups that closely. I mean, I know Matt said in an article that he felt he had been shooting the ball well all week, and I would agree with that. And so you put the time in. I mean, he's put the time in. You know, when you struggle, you don't just say, well, it's going to get better on its own. You get in the gym, you do the extra shooting, and Matt has done that. And so I think the work he put in led to that type of performance.
Talking to Brian Dutcher at San Diego Sports Leader, the Mighty 1090. You know, recruiting locally is an interesting topic to me because we've all spoken about how far the program has come since you and Coach Fisher got here a decade plus ago. But I wonder, have you noticed anything locally with you know, and this is the hometown of Bill Walton now, so have you noticed anything about the quality of high school basketball in San Diego? Has it improved? Has it stayed about the same since you guys arrived in town?
I think it consistently gets better and better every year. And obviously, you know, we were excited to have Richie Williams when he was a San Diego kid in the program. Obviously, James Rahan was a very solid player for us, and Matt Shrigley now, and then Trey Kell coming. So we've got to get the best player in San Diego if we can every year. And if we do that, we will continue to enjoy the kind of success we've had over the last 9 years.
So the high school basketball has gotten a lot better here. How much of that do you think is attributable to the success that maybe San Diego State has had?
Now, that's a good question. Are the kids watching San Diego State saying, wow, basketball is really exciting and I want to play it more at an earlier age? I think that definitely has an effect. If you're a young kid and you watch an Aztec game on TV and or you come to a game and you're from the city of San Diego, you go, wow, that is really cool. That's something I want to try. So I think there probably would be a direct link, Darren, that the success we had has had at least some small effect on the quality of basketball in the city of San Diego.
Yeah, I think it's really an interesting conversation. And just, again, because Strigley had this kind of performance, I bring it up. Did you watch New Mexico and UNLV play last night?
Every minute of it.
Every minute of it, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it wasn't really a good game, so you must have been doing coach's work there.
Yeah, I was trying to watch the number of times they ran different plays and who they were going to at what time, and they were sensational. I mean, they're back-to-back defending champs. They have 4 starters back, picked to win the league, and so it's going to be a real challenge, especially at the Pit. It's a great basketball environment. We've had success there over the years, and so our thoughts are we're going to put a solid game plan together, go out there and compete at the highest level and try to give ourselves a little separation in the standings on Saturday.
You were rooting for UNLV, obviously, last night.
I don't really like rooting for anybody because I'm friends with a lot of these guys, but the Aztecs probably would have benefited greater had the Rebels won. It would have given us a little cushion. But with that being said, we have no control over it, so I kind of sit there as a fan and just kind of enjoy it.
We had Xavier Thames on yesterday, and I posed a similar question to him, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't really care. We got to go. We just got to handle our business anyway. It's really not about what happens." He was speaking yesterday about last night's game. I thought that was really interesting that he's like, "Yeah, it doesn't really matter to us. It's not our focus. Our focus is Saturday."
Yeah, well, when you have your fate in your own hands, you don't have to rely on other people. And right now with a game lead, we didn't have to rely on Vegas to beat New Mexico because we weren't a game or 2 back. And so our fate is in our own hands. If we win out, we'll be conference champs. If we happen to drop one along the way, we still have a chance to make that up. So we control our own destiny, which is always what you want in basketball. And so in regards to rooting for or against other teams, we did not put ourselves in the position to have to do that.
Talking to Brian Dutcher, San Diego Sports Leader, the Mighty 1090, San Diego State at New Mexico coming up on Saturday. What are the challenges playing at New Mexico in terms of altitude? This came up about Wyoming a little bit more than a week plus ago. Is there a challenge there in playing at the Pit in New Mexico?
Well, we've talked before, our good friend Mr. Ziegler, Mark Ziegler, who does a great job covering us at the Olympics, obviously now, he's written articles on altitude, and right. It's the articles generally put out the information that if you can play between 24 and 36 hours after arrival, your chances are better to have a better performance. We don't plan that, obviously. Our flights work out that way, and we're going to be playing in under 36 hours after arrival. We get in there tomorrow night late, and then we play the next evening late. But then it also affects different people in different ways. So as coaches, we have to sit there and see who looks fatigued early. I know when we played at Air Force this year, we went to the bench earlier and more often, and we may have to do that again at New Mexico. When we get at altitude, we may have to go earlier to the bench and have shorter rotations.
And I asked not because I want to rehash our conversation from a week ago, but I did hear Coach Fisher on the radio on San Diego Sports Leader, the Mighty 1090. I did hear him say that Xavier struggled with the altitude at Wyoming. So I wonder how much that's something you'll be paying attention to this weekend.
To get Coach Fisher to say anything about altitude, first of all, is a miracle because he doesn't like talking about it.
I'm sure.
But, I think X had we needed to go to the bench a little earlier against Wyoming, and we may have to against New Mexico. But that's the nice thing about developing a deep bench. We have guys we believe in, we trust in, and that we're not just trying to hold the fort when X is out of the game. We're trying to play, build a lead, and continue to play good basketball. So this is the most depth we've ever had. So when we go on the road and we have to use it, we're not afraid to use it.
How do you get a shooter out of a shooting slump?
Have that first shot go in.
That's simple.
It's they talk about it on TV a lot. It's true to a guard. If you can't make a shot, try to get fouled, try to get to the foul line, try to see a shot go in the basket, groove a couple free throws in, maybe you feel better about your shot at that time. And so we've talked on this is like putting the golf ball. You miss a 1-footer, all of a sudden that next 1-footer looks like it's 2 foot. And you miss that, now it looks like it's 5 feet away. So shooting's the same way. If you can make one, then the next one gets a little easier, and all of a sudden the basket looks as big as the ocean. But when you start missing them, you start overthinking it sometimes. So X is a good shooter. He knows he's a good shooter. And so I would hope that whatever shooting slump he's been in, a lot has to do with the defense. they're concentrated on him, that New Mexico will give him a look or two that he can get off the snide and have another Xavier Thames type game for us.
Is he tired at all?
You know, we watched as coaches at practice last week, and we shortened the practice to try to rest legs. We cut back drastically on the amount of time we were on the floor. And so we realized that we're getting to the time of year where the kids might be getting a little worn down, so we're trying to save legs, go shorter on the floor, maybe hold X out of certain drills where guys that get a lot of minutes, maybe hold them back a little bit in practice, knowing that they've been through the wars, they know what's expected, they know how to run certain plays or defend certain things. So maybe we give the regulars a little bit more rest in practice than we normally do.
Dutch, this is a New Mexico team for people maybe that didn't tune in last night. It is missing. It's minus Steve Alford, the head coach who's been there for a long time. It is minus Tony Snell, who got drafted and ended up playing in the pros this year. When you watch them play, does it look like the same New Mexico team, just with a different coach, different starter, or does it look like a different team? Is there a stamp put on by the new coach?
No, I think because Noodles Neal was with Steve for all those years, that they play a lot like they did over the past 2 years. They got kids that believe in what they're doing. They have a veteran team. They've won back-to-back titles, 4 starters back. They'll probably have the strongest inside attack since we saw Kansas. They have 2 wonderful inside players in Bairstow and Kirk that are 7 foot and 6'9", and not thin. I'm talking big kids, strong kids. So it's going to be a real challenge for us to try to keep them from attacking us inside, while at the same time paying attention to the returning Conference Player of the Year, Kendall Williams. So they present a lot of challenges at a lot of different levels for us.
Sometimes it's not always who you play, but it's when you play them. How do you view New Mexico at this stage of the season in terms of how they played all year?
You know, I think this is where Coach Neal did a great job. You know, he had Alex Kirk out for a number of games with an injury. He had Greenwood out with a number of games, their starting point guard, with an injury. And instead of making those injuries a negative, he's developed his bench. He had to go to the bench. Now he feels confidence in the bench. And so I think they're starting to play their best basketball too. So I think you're looking at 2 teams that are playing really good basketball at the exact same point in time. And one of the 2 of us is going to be conference champs. I can't believe that with the cushion we've built between us and the rest of the field, that this game and then the last game of the season here at Viejas against them will determine the conference championship.
Is his name really, I mean, I know his name is Craig Neal. Do people call him Noodles?
Noodles Neal. That's
Noodles?
what everyone calls him, dating back from his playing days.
I did not know that. Noodles Neal. Does that have a story behind it?
I'll have to ask him when I see him. He might be a little distracted before the game, but maybe I'll ask him after.
Well, hey, good luck this weekend. I mean, it should be just a fascinating game to watch on Saturday. Of course, we wish you all the luck, all the best. Coach, safe travels. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for everything, Darren.